What's going on, guys? K-Pine here and welcome back. And in this video I'll be featuring the team that got me to expert and spot 215 on the global leaderboards. Lantern Lead, Licky Safe Swap, and Wigglytuff in the back. Lantern is on Water Gun because after the Spark nerf, I believe it's just a better option for farm and damage potential. The Licky Safe Swap is meant to bait out any steel types like Skarmory or Bastiodon, so Lantern can finish it off and Wigglytuff can roam free. I went with Wiggles here because Lantern, especially on Water Gun, is weak to Dragon types where Wiggles covers that weakness. I also wanted a hard answer to opposing Annihilape Safe Swaps, which Wigglytuff does supply. The basic idea of this team is that for the most part, you're going to want to save your shields for Wiggles so you can really get the most out of the charm damage, which, in addition to the reasons I listed before, Lantern and Licky are both bulky, allowing them to take many hits so you can save your shields. If you do come across a steel type lead though, it's perfectly fine to use the shields on the Lantern to get rid of the steel type, and if there's any chance your opponent's lead Pokemon could be paired with the steel type, then you're going to want to swap into that Licky to bait it out. I actually did go on a 17 game win streak with this team earlier in the season, and had a 17-8 run on the day to hit expert, where I'll be showcasing a 5-0 set and the 4-1 set from that day that got me over the line. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead Lantern into Shadow Alolan Sandslash. Now this is a great lead for us, because not only if they're leading the A-Slash do they tend to be weak to Wiggles in the back, but Lantern also wins the 0 shield and 1 shield scenario here, despite them having access to super effective Drill Run. So I like to commit a shield on the first Drill Run. It's such a tough bait for them to bait with an ice punch. I want to say 9 out of 10 times they'll full send at the Drill Run, and that one time they do bait the ice punch, it does feel bad that you shielded it, but really it doesn't make a difference in the matchup since you still win the 1 shield scenario. And that's what I'll play out to every time in that match. Now here my opponent tries to snipe the Lantern with their Feraligatr, but we're able to hold on to that energy and bring in our Lickitung. Lickitung does have a good matchup here against the Shadow Feraligatr because you can tank 2 Hydro Cannons and they won't quite be able to Shadow Claw you down without you reaching another Body Slam to punish them. So here, as long as we're throwing on good timing, we do make it to the Body Slam here in this matchup. This one does bring the Shadow Feraligatr quite low, and as you'll see here, they can't farm you down. You'll be able to get the Lick down before they can farm you down, so they are forced to throw off a move. And all that does is allow me to get a charm head start on my Wiggly. And now we're going to see what they have in the back. Just a bit of a reminder that I do have that energy stored on my Lantern as well. And they come in with an Azumarill. So I'm going to load up on energy. And I'm just going to go for the charm down as much as I can right now. I won't be able to quite get it before they reach another play rough. So I'm going to wait a turn, make sure they don't catch, and go for the Disarming Voice. The reason why I go for the Disarming Voice is because basically their only win condition at this point is calling an Icy Wind bait. So that's why I do go for the Disarming Voice right there. As they're able to land the play rough, we do get the charm down of the Azu and charm down the A-Slash as well. GG's. Next battle, we lead Lantern into Shadow Skarmory. Brilliantly, this is exactly where we want to see it, and my opponent's going to swap into a Shadow Quagsire. We're quick on the swap, we're able to counter it with our Lickitung. This is a positive matchup for the Lickitung, but the Shadow Quagsire can fight back, as you'll be able to see. They land the Stone Edge, and now it comes down to a bait call. If they shielded this Power Whip, then they potentially could make a play for switch advantage, which they do. So now they build up on energy, they're at the back-to-back Aqua Tails here, so I'm expecting them to go for the Aqua Tail instead of the Stone Edge, which they do, and we get the bait call correct, which is perfect, because now I can shield this next Aqua Tail, fire off this Body Slam before their next Aqua Tail, which will KO the Shadow Quagsire. And if they want to make a play for switch, they will have to give up another shield here, but even if they do give up another shield, they won't be able to get the farm down. As you'll see, we're able to make yet another Body Slam when the Shadow Swampert comes in. So we're able to land that Body Slam damage onto the Swampert. We can show them our Wigglytuff, and there's absolutely nothing my opponent can do anymore. GG's. Next battle, we lead Lantern into Shadow Gligar. Now this is a matchup that's drastically been improved with Water Gun Lantern. And not only that, but more oftentimes than not, you'll come across Shadow Gligar that stay in this matchup. just because the Water Gun Lantern tends to core break them in the back. And while the Shadow Gligar can make 2 digs here, I do recommend giving up both of your shields, just because your Lantern will leave with over a Surf stored and at basically full HP. And here they swap into a Annihilape. We come in with a Wigglytuff, which is one of the reasons why we have the Wigglytuff there to punish Annihilape safe swaps, and yet another one concedes. GG's. Next battle, Lantern into Vigoroth. Tend to prefer to go for a Water Gun in this, or for Surfs in this matchup, because if you do go for the Thunderbolt and they shield it, it'll come down to DRE as to whether or not you're able to get a Surf off after that. So I would rather not trust a game mechanic that doesn't work at like it's intended to. So I tend to go for the Surfs here because it's just a little bit safer. If they let it go, then you'll be able to outpace to this next Surf before they take you out. And if they showed it and want switch, that's fine. Like, I can just come in with my Wigglytuff here. I don't want to come in with Lickitung because that double resisted Lick Down will allow them to get the Body Slam and 1 or 2 counters worth of damage. So I just come in with the Wigglytuff, absorb the Body Slam, and what do you know? They concede. My guess is that they probably had like an Altaria or a Dragonite behind that for a counter resist, as well as an Annihilape, so they just conceded. Next battle, Lantern into Defense Deoxys. Build up to the Thunderbolt, fire off the Surf. Firing off the Surf or a move right away as soon as you get to the Thunderbolt is on good timing against a 2-turn user, because it does take 19 Water Guns or 19 turns to get to the Thunderbolt, which when you're facing against a 2-turn move user like Defense Deoxys with counter, throwing on odd numbers is good timing. We do get the shield with that Surf bait and are able to land another Surf, and I let this go, right? You could think, hey, maybe they're in Water Gun sniping range, so they don't get off that second Psycho boost, but I didn't want to test it. And here, as you'll see, they do get that second Psycho boost off anyways, so it was a good call on our part. Now, a lot of DD leads are paired with a Dark type behind it, like Mandibuzz, as you saw, or a Guzzlord. So switch advantage could be nice in this situation, but also our shield advantages, because paired with that Dark type is very often an opposing Lickitung, and Wigglytuff up a shield will just run through that back line. Here in this case, they do have a Lantern, and up a shield, it's just game over as well. We just make sure we go for the Disarming Voice. Again, you know, like, they could let that go. If they call an Icy Wind there and they survive and get to another move, then that's kind of a waste of all that energy just because they called it. So I'd rather guarantee that shield with the Disarming Voice. Added to that, when the Mandibuzz comes back in, I have a move stored where I can land that Disarming Voice. You may be able to think, okay, Pine, why don't you go for the Icy Wind there to give them a debuff? Well, Disarming Voice hits harder, and they're never going to be able to farm down my Wigglytuff, so I can put it in a range where Lickitung will easily be able to deal with the Mandy, and in 5 matches, we have 4 opponents concede. GG's. So that seals off the 5-0 set as we go into the next one, where we achieved Expert. Lantern into another Vigoroth lead. So same game plan as last time. We're going to build up to Thunderbolt to bait it, but we're going to go for the Surf. They are able to outpace the Body Slam, 1 more Water Gun, and then the Surf for good timing. Vigoroth does call the bait on that Surf as well, so a little bit unfortunate, but that's perfectly fine. As you saw previously, we still are able to win the 0 shield scenario. So we're going to load up on energy. We let our Lantern get low just because if they do come in with something, we don't want them to potentially farm down the Lantern. Or get too much farm on the Lantern, I should say. They'll be able to farm it down, but we want to keep that to a minimum. And now they have a Skarmory, and I can bring in my Lickitung, right? If they pivot out of the Skarmory, then I'll pivot into my Wigglytuff. And if they stay in with the Skarmory, then Lickitung handles the Skarmory just fine to be able to get it low enough where it's not that much of a threat to the Wiggly. So here I will give up a shield because I do have 2 and I want to get rid of the Skarmory. Now they swap into a Sableye, we pivot into our Wigglytuff, and that is absolutely perfect as yet another opponent concedes. GG's. Next battle, we lead Lantern into Annihilape. Now in this matchup, I do like to build up to the Thunderbolt, and then it's your choice whether you want to bait with the Surf or full send the Thunderbolt. All I can really say is that most Annihilape leads will shield that move from a Water Gun Lantern, so it's up to you. They end up safe swapping into a Licky, and more often than not, a Licky safe swap is meant to bait out a Wigglytuff. But so what I like to do is ship with the Lantern and then mirror my own Lickitung so I can keep alignment in the lead and then put the Wigglytuff on what is most likely weak to it in the back. But in this instance, they have an Annihilape lead and a Licky safe swap, so they're pretty weak to a Wigglytuff lead. But my thinking here is that the Annihilape stored all this energy, so I'm still going to do the same thing. I'm going to chip it, swap into my Lickitung, and then once I get switch advantage, my opponent makes a very nice catch of this Body Slam, by the way. But once I get switch advantage, I can just put my Wigglytuff on the Annihilape and just deny all this energy it has. Because what's it going to do? Throw the resisted Night Slash or the double resisted Shadow Ball. If they have close combat, then that could get a little tricky. Wigglytuff will still survive it, but the standard moveset of Night Slash and Shadow Ball, Wigglytuff absolutely walls. But if it's an Annihilape lead and they stay in against your Lantern, like I said, you can build up to that Thunderbolt, you can full send the Thunderbolt, you can bait with the Surf, that's up to you. But in the meantime, I generally recommend shielding the move the Annihilape throws, just because they full send that Shadow Ball. I'd probably say like 8 out of 10 times as they full send the Shadow Ball. But regardless whether they bait you or full send the Shadow Ball, you're then going to want to safe swap into your own Lickitung when they build up to their next Shadow Ball. So potentially you can make that Shadow Ball catch, but if you don't make that Shadow Ball catch, that's fine because you still get to check for that Steel type your opponent could have in the back. Now in this matchup, the Lickitung does make a last second Body Slam. We still have 2 shields left and they have a Cresselia, but they have 1 shield. And if they let this Body Slam go, I'll just be able to fast move them down. And if they shield it, then I'll be able to reach a Thunderbolt for my Lantern. So at that point, even though both of my Pokemon were extremely low on health, my opponent did not have a win condition left and they concede. GG's. Next battle, Lantern into Shadow Dragonair. We're going to safe swap into our Lickitung. We fire off the Body Slam on the CMP tie to try and get some chip damage onto the Shadow Dragonair, but they make a catch. Very nice catch by them, but this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted to bait out that Bastiodon, so the Lickitung safe swap has done just that. We're going to load up on energy, fire off this Power Whip before they're able to reach a Stone Edge. Power Whip lands, and now they're going to be firing off their move. Lickitung is able to hang on, make it to yet another Power Whip, 2 licks, and then the move against a 3-turn move like Smackdown. And now we're going to let them farm us down because we're going to come in with our Lantern here, and we're just going to Water Gun down that Bastiodon the entire way. And if they swap out of that matchup, then we just counter swap with our Wiggly right here and get rid of the Shadow Dragonair. Unfortunately, the Dragonair does reach a second move, and that's extremely tough for me because I can't give up my second shield yet. And if they didn't reach that second move, I would be in a lot better position here just because I would be able to deal with the Bastiodon a lot better. But since I'm not able to reach that second move, things are getting a little tricky now. I do go for the Icy Wind, hoping to burn my Switch Clock, save my Wigglytuff for potential catch, and then bring in my Lantern, which I am able to do. And they have a Shadow for Alligator in the back. So health on Wigglytuff would have been amazing here because I would have been able to chip away at this for Alligator with this Lantern, and then Wigglytuff with that shield up could still put in work. But the match isn't over yet. We still have a win condition. If my Switch Clock is able to come up and I'm able to catch a Hydro Cannon, I feel like I'm still in a pretty decent spot. Not necessarily decent, but a chance to win it. So I will take that first Hydro. Second Hydro, I will have to shield, hoping that the clock is just up in time. I'm spamming the Switch Clock, but it is not, as they are able to reach a Hydro Cannon. Down goes the Lantern, and they swap into the Basti to smack down the Wiggly. GG's. Next battle, we lead Lantern into Wigglytuff. And in this matchup, I like to load up to 20 water guns. We're not sure which one 20 water guns is. It's just one more after you get to the Thunderbolt, because Thunderbolt is 19. So you just throw one more after the Thunderbolt for 20, and that is good timing. And then I like to go for the Surf in this matchup because they're a Wigglytuff. Charmers love to shield, as well as the fact that Wigglytuff has access to Icy Wind where it can debuff your attack. Like, of course they're going to be shielding. So I go for the Surf bait. Surf bait is successful. I call the Icy Wind because, again, Wigglytuffs love to go for that Icy Wind. And then I'm able to land that Thunderbolt, which does massive damage to the Wigglytuff, and then we can snipe with our own. And here, this is looking good because my opponent is taking a while to bring in a Pokemon, so it seems like they're thinking in this matchup, which means that they don't have a hard answer to an opposing Wigglytuff, which is exactly what we want. They come in with an Azumarill, and I can just two-shield my way through this matchup and then land an Icy Wind on their third Pokemon, which hopefully Lickitung should be able to deal with then, especially since it's debuffed. So we go for the Disarming Voice. We don't want them to call the Icy Wind. They let it go. Disarming Voice does land. We shield their next move, and we are able to get the farm down, or we would have been able to get the farm down, but they swap out into their Clodsire. And like I said, we're able to get the Icy Wind debuff, and here I decided to stay in just so I can get more charm damage, as even though it's resisted, it's still doing a decent bit to the Clodsire. But hey, they load up a ton of energy and let me get super close to another Icy Wind, so I'm just going to store that energy and then swap it to my Lickitung. And at this point, my opponent does not have a win condition left, especially because of how low the Azu is, so they concede. GG's. Next battle, we lead Lantern into Empoleon. Now this is a good lead for us because not only are we seeing the Steel type on the lead, but their entire moveset of Steel Wing, Drill Peck, and Hydro Cannon is resisted against our Lantern, while we have the option hit for super effective with Thunderbolt. And not only that, they swap into a Goodra. So if you're quick enough into your counter swap with the Wigglytuff, you'll be able to tank an Aqua Tail and then farm down before they reach a second Aqua Tail, which is exactly what they do here. And now I'm going to throw one more Charm and then the Icy Wind for good timing against the Empoleon. And the Empoleon's going to get a good farm down here. But look at that. These are resisted charms still chunking the Empoleon. And not only now they leave with a lot of energy, but they're resisted. And that energy is completely walled by Lantern. They swap into their Trevenant, and we have a perfect answer for Lickitung. And that seems to be like a good theme of the video today. Opponents top lefting in their matchups. GG's. That gives us a 4-1 in the set, which, as you'll see, is just enough to break into Expert. If you're looking for a strong team, this is definitely one that you can give a shot. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I did go on a 17-game win streak with it earlier in the season, and I've had fairly consistent climbing results with it throughout, so hopefully you guys can as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate ya. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and with that, I'll catch you in the next one.